All right, thanks for joining us today. Today, this is our monthly sort of Nebula introduction webinar. This is for those of you that want to learn a little bit more about Nebula and exactly what it is. As we go through today, feel free to use the question and answer window in Zoom to send in questions. I will answer them as best I can as we go through, and for anything that maybe requires a little bit more time or is late coming in, I'll answer it at the end of today's webinar. So I'm Sean Rogers. Hello. I've been with Zyxel since 2003. And I'm sort of the product manager for our Nebula cloud solution. So Nebula was the first, what we call a full stack cloud networking solution that was aimed at the SMB space. We launched our product back in 2016. So, you know, that was before Meraki Go, that was before Ubiquity Elite, that was before Netgear, that was before, I'm trying to remember what Aruba's affordable version is. So we've been at it here for a while, and we've constantly improved and added to our Nebula solution. Prior to us, most of the cloud solutions on the market, and there were just a handful of them, were aimed at the enterprise space, not the SMB space. So designed for much larger deployments than what most of our customers are using the cloud to do. Give me one quick second here. Okay, there we go. So this is showing you here our components here that make up the Nebula cloud solution. So the main part of Nebula is here, the Nebula Control Center. So this is the cloud-based part of our solution suite here. And this is where you will go to do configuration changes, to see what's going on your customers' networks. This is where you're going to do firmware updates. Everything is done through the cloud, and you access that really simply. You go to nebula.zyxel.com, and all of your customers show up at that one URL. There's no need to do port forwarding. There's no need for VPN connections, no need for you to install any software or anything like that. And then on the hardware side of things, we've got a couple different categories of products. We have our security gateway products. We have our switches. We have access points. We have UTM firewalls. And we have our mobile app. And the mobile app is not so much designed to be used to manage your customers' networks, but it's used to let you keep an eye on things on the go. And for your installers, it's designed to make it easy for them to quickly and easily add or remove products from your customers' networks. So this is sort of, you know, all the different stuff that goes into setting up a new network installation. So with Nebula, the idea behind Nebula here is to either reduce costs on some of this stuff, reduce the amount of things you need to buy to install, the amount of time it takes to configure things. So at the end of the day, you're saving yourself both time and money by using a cloud managed solution versus doing things the traditional way. So some of the things here which, you know, save you time is it's a lot quicker now to install equipment. Equipment literally just needs to be plugged in and have power and an internet connection, and it'll automatically reach out to the cloud and download its configuration. You can be doing configurations for the devices before you even get the devices in the mail, let alone installed in your customer's network. You know, we make it easier for you to push out changes over the air. We allow you to schedule firmware updates. We store your logs in the cloud for you. Up to a year's worth of logs can automatically be stored in the cloud, and we make it easier to access your equipment. So we'll go through some of the features here in Nebula. So as I've sort of mentioned already, we have this cool thing, the ability to set up without having to unbox the device. So when you set up a new site in Nebula, most of the configuration options are already there for you before you've even standardized on which equipment you're going to be using. And then once you do receive the equipment, you simply need to scan a QR code that's on the outside of the box and assign it to your customer. There's no need to remove the product from the box and do any sort of pre-configuration before you send it out to your customer location in most installation instances. The only time you would need to take a device out and configure it directly is if you are installing it on a network that absolutely needs fixed IPs to be assigned before the device powers on. Most of our customers have switched over to using DHCP, or at least doing DHCP for the initial installation and then converting the devices over to fixed IP after that initial activation of the product. Setting up Nebula just takes a few minutes. We've got a number of different wizards in there that'll help walk you through some of the quick standard configuration options that you may need. We also, if you're using our Pro Pack, we have the ability to go in and clone existing organizations and existing sites. So if you've already got a site that you've done in the past, and this new site is going to be 90% of the same settings, you can simply clone that old site and then just change those things that need to be changed. In general, you can have a new functional access point on a site running with Captive Portal in less than 5 minutes. So Nebula is all handled management-wise by the cloud. Again, you just go to that nebula.zyxel.com website, and that's where everything is. There is no need for you to be running any sort of virtual machines, any sort of cloud keys, local wireless LAN controllers, nothing like that. If a Zyxel product is Nebula compatible, the agent that communicates with the cloud is built into the hardware itself. There's also no need to go into the device and tell it you want to cloud manage it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. So once you've got your Nebula sites up and running, you can manage them and access them anywhere you have an internet connection and a web browser or our mobile app. So you can log in and quickly see what's going on your customer sites. When it comes to guest access, Nebula has a number of different options here, making it really flexible for different types of guest access. So whether you're trying to provide guest access to vendors visiting an office, or whether you're trying to provide internet access at a restaurant or coffee shop, we have options that you can use. So we have built-in Captive Portal, which can be done just in an access point without using one of our gateways, or you can do it at the gateway level if you're looking to provide Captive Portal for both wired and wireless connections. We can have users agree to a terms of service before they get on. We can have them log in with a username and password. We can have them register and create their own username and password to log in. We can use Facebook to have them log in using their Facebook account. So there's a number of different ways that you can do this. We have a very basic sort of Captive Portal splash screen that we redirect to, and you can go into Nebula and make some changes to that, add your logo, change the text around. If you need something more complex than that, we'll actually let you download the HTML files and the CSS files, edit those manually, and then re-upload them to the cloud for us to host. And for even more complex sorts of integrations, like you want to capture additional data and store it in your own database, we can do that as well. We'll give you the code that you can integrate into your website and have that act as the Captive Portal for your users. So a ton of flexibility when it comes to doing guest access onto the networks. So when it comes to wireless, Smart Mesh is built in. So Smart Mesh is the ability basically to have different APs scattered about, with some of them not having an Ethernet connection. These APs will automatically find each other and create a mesh, and they will find APs that do have an Ethernet connection to act as backhaul. So they'll do that automatically for you. You don't have to worry about it. Also, in situations where for some reason the Ethernet connection gets disconnected or severed, again, the AP will automatically see that it doesn't have Ethernet access anymore and put itself into mesh mode and try to create a mesh back to a wired connection that is working. We offer both WPA2 and WPA3 enterprise security. So this is more than just pre-shared key. This is having users use a username and password with 802.1x to do authentication. And there's several different levels of security you can do this way, including using certificates. And roaming is built in there. So we've got all the standards when it comes to quick roaming for those of you guys doing voice over IP to make sure as a user walks around on a conversation, nothing is lost. So on the switch side of things, all of our switches here have intelligent PoE. So this is the ability, instead of using classifications which is a standard way that you're supposed to handle PoE. We can do instead this intelligent monitoring where we monitor the device and see how much power it's really actually drawing, and then free up the rest of the budget for other devices. So this way you can fit more devices onto a switch with the same power budget than you could without this feature. We have various network protection technologies in here, including VLAN configuration, 802.1x authentication to connect to an Ethernet port, loop guards, DHCP server guard to make sure somebody doesn't plug in their own DHCP server and hijack some of those client devices. And IGMP snooping. We got a question here from Rick going back to the access points. He was asking, do our 11 AC access points offer WPA3 encryption or just the new Wi-Fi 6 radios? At the moment, I believe it's just the Wi-Fi 6 devices that have WPA3. It may be the new 1123 ACV3 and WAC 500. Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering if they offer WPA3 or not, but for sure all of the Wi-Fi 6 products do. And none of the older legacy 802.11ac access points support it. They just don't have the right chips to be able to handle the higher level of encryption that's needed for WPA3. Going back here to the switches. We have a virtual switch stack. Basically, when you go into Nebula and configure things, all your switches and all of their ports are listed on one screen, and you can go in and select ports across multiple different devices to configure at the same time. So as I mentioned earlier, all updates are done over the air. There is no need to be on site. There is no need to directly access a device to change its configuration or update its firmware. It's all done through the cloud. On the security side of things, we make doing VPNs very easy. When it comes to site-to-site VPNs, assuming all of the sites are managed in Nebula, you simply go in, choose the sites you want to link together, choose the topology type you want to use, and we'll handle everything else on the back end. When it comes to remote users, using L2TP over IPsec, we can send out an email script that'll automatically configure the built-in client on the device to connect back. So you don't have to worry about installing your own software or trying to walk your employee through the configuration process. You simply send them this script and it handles it for them. So that works with Windows, that works with Macintosh, and that works with iOS devices. Unfortunately, there's too much variability with Android devices to make it work with Android. So Android is the only thing where the scripting will not work. So Nebula was designed from the ground up to handle multiple customers and multiple sites under those customers. So it makes it really easy for you to keep all of your customers essentially in one place and quickly be able to jump from customer to customer and site to site on the back end to see what's going on, to make configuration changes, whatever it has. It's all just done through that same Nebula website. So this is showing here when you log into an organization, it breaks down for you all of the different sites, their current status, how many devices are online on them. So then from there, you simply click through to the site you want to manage, and it takes you to this dashboard view here. So this dashboard gives you a quick snapshot of what's going on the network. It can show you things like how much PoE budget is available versus how much is being used, how many wireless client devices are currently connected, which users and which applications are using your bandwidth. You've got these menus over here so you can dig down into each individual type of product by category. So you can go to APs, switches, gateways to delve down further into the reports and statuses or go into configuration. You can quickly jump between customers and sites up here with these drop-down menus. Simply drop it down and choose the new customer or new site, and it'll automatically switch over to it. So this is showing our wireless LAN screen. So this is showing you the status of wireless devices. You can see here, we show both currently connected devices and previously connected devices. And you can customize which columns are viewable here. So you can see things like which AP they were connected to, which SSID they were connected to, what type of encryption they were using, the MAC address of the device, the vendor of the wireless device, what their signal strength was, all sorts of good information to help you troubleshoot issues on your wireless network. Here we go, similar sort of things on the switches. You can go through and quickly get a snapshot on a switch, which ports are operating at gigabit, which ports are operating at 100 megabits, which ports are providing PoE power, which ones are not. And you can also see traffic over time. So port configuration is done pretty easily. So you can just select the ports you want to configure, and then you will get a single screen here showing you the different options that you have for doing the configuration. So you can quickly set up things like VLAN across multiple ports, across multiple switches. So just about everything I've talked about today is provided for free with Nebula. Nebula does not require any sort of additional licensing or subscription for this key functionality. So this free version of Nebula, you can manage an unlimited number of customers, an unlimited number of sites, and an unlimited number of devices for free. Now, when Nebula first launched, you had to buy Nebula-specific hardware, and this hardware could only be managed with Nebula. These days, we've introduced something called Nebula Flex, and this applies to most of our business class products that we're offering right now. So Nebula Flex basically means a device can be used either in the traditional managed method where you directly access the GUI, or it can be managed in the cloud. So it allows you to standardize on products and use those products whether you're using the Nebula cloud or not. Switching to Nebula is super simple. You simply scan that QR code, assign it to a customer site, and after a few minutes, the device will reboot into Nebula managed mode. And if at any point you decide you no longer want to manage that device in the cloud, you simply remove it from the Nebula cloud and it will automatically switch back to standard standalone mode. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you switch modes, the configurations are different. When it goes into Nebula mode, it looks at the Nebula site it's been assigned to and downloads the configuration for that site. If you put it back into standalone mode, it'll reset the configuration back to default. So just keep that in mind. Some of the products you'll see will also be called Nebula Flex Pro. So Nebula Flex Pro, when it comes to access points, unlocks a third method of management for access points. It allows you to use a wireless LAN controller to manage the APs. So now you can have 3 different methods to choose from when it comes to managing your APs, directly in the cloud or using a wireless LAN controller. That wireless LAN controller functionality is built into most of our firewall products. The other thing that comes up with Nebula Flex Pro is Nebula does have some optional licenses which unlock additional features. So a product that is advertising itself as Nebula Flex Pro includes 1 year of Nebula Pro licensing bundled with it. So that's the difference between Nebula Flex and Nebula Flex Pro. When it comes to products that work with Nebula, it covers a pretty broad lineup of our products. It covers our 1350, let's go through here. On the Nebula Flex side, so these are products that are dual mode, either standalone or cloud. You have our access points that start with the number 1 or the number 2. So things like the NWA 1123, the NWA 210, those are Nebula Flex. On the switch side of things, our GS 1920 V2 series, our XS 1930 and XGS 1930 series are all dual mode. And on the security gateway side of things, we have the USG Flex. On the Nebula Flex Pro, so again, this adds 1 year of bundled Nebula Pro service. On the APs, gives you tri-mode management. And it's basically all of our access points that start with the digit 5 or 6. So NWA 5123 ACHD, WAC 610D, WAC 650S, all of those are going to be Nebula Flex Pro. On the switch side of things, that includes our GS 1350 series, the GS 2220 series, and the XS 3800s. And then when it comes to the Nebula Flex products, if you are buying a USG Flex product, The USG Flex products that include UTM services out of the box also include 1 year of Nebula Pro licensing bundled with it. So if you buy a standalone USG Flex, no license is included. Works just fine with the free version of Nebula. If you buy the UTM version of the USG Flex products, it includes 1 year of Pro Pack. And then starting at the end of September, that's what we're targeting right now, we will also be adding the ATP series in for Nebula Flex Pro. So I want to talk a little bit about Nebula licensing. So again, the core version of Nebula is free, doesn't cost anything to use it as a basic management platform. And then we've got 2 additional tiers of service that we offer. We offer something that we just launched this year called Plus Pack and something called Pro Pack, which we've had forever. So I'll go through sort of the differences on those. Basically, Pro Pack is the standard add-on license that we've had since the launch of the product. And then Plus Pack is sort of an in-between that's designed to compete with some of the lower-end cloud offerings like from Netgear and some of the other vendors. So it costs less than the Pro Pack, but it doesn't have quite as many features. Now, one very important thing to talk about here, licensing is done at the device and the organization level. So basically, if you want to use one of these optional add-ons, Plus or Pro, you need to have a license for every device under the same organization. So Nebula management, basically, we divide things into orgs and sites. So in general, an org is your customer, and a site is physical locations under that customer, right? So if you've got a franchisee you're working with, you know, Albany McDonald's, and they've got a couple different locations, you would generally have Albany McDonald's as an org, and then each one of their locations you would have set up as a different site. So licensing is done at the org level, not the site level. So if you're going to be using Plus or Pro Pack, every device in that org needs to have a license in order for those features to be unlocked and available. So if you have a customer who has some sites where they want to use one of the add-on packs and some sites where they do not, you would need to split them up into 2 orgs. One org that's operating on the free Nebula, one org that's using the licenses for the paid version. So here's sort of the breakdown of the differences between these packs. I'll go through this here a little bit. I've got some slides that go into some of these features a little bit more detail. This is available on our website, the same configuration or chart here. You can also reach out to your salesperson, Jacob, Andy, David, and they can provide you a copy of this as well. So you don't need to try to memorize everything here. But again, free cloud or cloud management applies to all of them, unlimited devices, unlimited organizations, unlimited sites, available in any different method here. All of them have our zero-touch auto deployment where they automatically will switch into cloud mode if you want to manage them in cloud mode. You don't have to do any local configuration if you're doing that. All of them give you over-the-air firmware management. All of them work with our app. And now we start running into here some of the differences. So one of them has to do with logging information. The free version of Nebula only keeps 24 hours of log information. Plus Pack keeps a week of log information in the cloud, and the Pro Pack keeps a year's worth of log information in the cloud. Another difference comes into admin accounts. So for some of you smaller guys out here, it's not really going to affect you, but for some of you bigger MSPs, this is going to be important. So the free version of Nebula gives you 5 admin accounts per organization. Plus Pack gets you 8. Pro Pack gets you an unlimited number of admin accounts. We also have a cloud-hosted database that you can use for user authentication or MAC address filtering. The free version of Nebula only includes 50 entries into that cloud database. Plus Pack includes 100. Pro Pack has no limitations. All of the core feature sets of our products can be configured with all 3 versions of these modes here. So now some of the other differences here. Advanced firmware scheduling. So you can do firmware scheduling with the free version of Nebula, but if you're using the Plus or Pro Pack, you get more options when it comes to how you are scheduling things. So with Plus and Pro, you can schedule, instead of scheduling an org to do an update, you can schedule individual devices. You can put different schedules for different types of devices. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility there. It also unlocks, Plus and Pro unlock emailed reports. So we have the ability to generate these reports which show what's going on the network and then email them out periodically. You can add your own branding to those reports. So you can have them automatically sent out to your customers to show what you've been doing and what's been going on their networks. So that's something that requires the Plus or the Pro pack. And then we have this cool auto network topology view, which I'll show you in an upcoming slide. So if you want email alerts, such as when a device goes offline, you need the Plus or the Pro pack. If you want to use Wi-Fi vouchers for like a paid guest access, that requires the Plus or the Pro pack. And then Pro pack also has a full audit log. So it tracks every configuration change and who made that configuration change and saves that in the cloud for review. The ability to do backup and restores of your configuration, advanced radius integration, Facebook login, or excuse me, Facebook Wi-Fi, which is different than the Facebook login, which is on the free version of Nebula, as well as it unlocks some advanced extra stuff. It unlocks artificial intelligence on Wi-Fi management. It unlocks additional features on the switches, such as IGMP snooping for those of you doing IPTV stuff. All right, so we'll go through some of these in a little bit more detail. So we were talking about here, we've got, a lot more information to help you troubleshoot problems with the Pro pack than what you would get on the free version of Nebula, right? You've got a year's worth of logs. You've got a number of different reports that can be generated. You're getting email alerts if devices go offline. So there's a lot more stuff there to help you when it comes to troubleshooting issues on your networks. We get you more advanced user management, such as the ability to do dynamic VLANs. We have these things called templates, which will let you change settings across multiple sites at the same time. You simply load up the template, choose the things you want to change, and it will automatically apply them across multiple sites. So you don't have to go into each site and make the changes. As I mentioned, we have artificial intelligence, which helps automatically tweak the wireless network to solve performance issues. Dynamic pre-shared keys is another new way of doing security where instead of having users use 802.1x to authenticate, everybody gets their own unique pre-shared key. They use the same SSID, and depending on the pre-shared key they use, you can apply different VLAN settings to them. So this is just showing you here the report you get in the Wi-Fi with the Pro pack, which tracks the quality of connection for each individual user and lets you know what's going on with them. On the switch side of things, it opens up things such as port bandwidth controls, the ability to back up switch configurations, automatic VLAN assignments, such as being able to do what they call OUI filtering, where basically, if you're doing, say, IP phones on the network, and they're all coming from one vendor, you can simply put in the beginning of the MAC address for that vendor. And then any device that gets plugged in with that MAC address, or that, the beginning of that MAC address, will automatically can be put on, say, your voice VLAN. So you don't have to go in and do it on a port basis or device basis manually. If you're using our 1350 series switches, we have the ability to monitor connected devices. And if these stop responding to pings, we have the ability to automatically power cycle them to reboot them and get them back online. And again, it unlocks a bunch of IGMP features that aren't normally there in the free version of Nebula. If you're doing IPTV, which most of you are not, we unlock some additional reports, including a little bit of AI-based stuff where if we see issues on your IPTV streams, we'll give you suggestions of what settings need to be changed to solve those issues. And then on the security side of things here, we've got advanced VPN topology view that you can create, additional remote tools that you can use, such as the ability to do command line interface over the cloud. And we've got this cool network topology view where we'll show you which devices are plugged into which other devices, both Nebula and non-Nebula devices, again, to help you with troubleshooting things. If something's going wrong, you can figure out, which AP is plugged into which switch, which is backhauled to which additional switch. So that's it for ProPack. And now I want to talk about what's called MSP Pack. So this is a different type of license. Again, it's optional. Whereas ProPack and PlusPack are done on a per device basis at the org level. The MSP license applies to an individual administrator account. So anytime you log in with an administrator account with this MSP pack, any of your customers that you have access to, any organizations that that admin account has access to, it will unlock these MSP features for you. So it's done on, again, instead of being done on a per org per device basis, it's done on a per admin account basis. So for most people, if you want these features, generally most of our customers are just assigning it to a single, super user admin account to unlock these features on all of their customers. So you just buy it, once per that admin. And it gets a little confusing, and I apologize for that. It's a different way of doing things. So basically, it unlocks what's called MSP view mode, which gives you a snapshot of everything going on all of your customers, including what their current license status is. And that's probably one of the best things about the MSP view, is basically if you're an MSP and you're managing a lot of different customers, the MSP view gets you an easier way to see what's going on across all of your customers' networks as far as licensing goes. So if you're managing different types of licensing for different customers, MSP Pack makes it easier to see, which of your customers have licenses coming up that are going to expire, which may already have expired, which ones are okay. And we also unlock some different views that I don't have a screenshot of here that helps summarize things and just make it that much easier to manage licenses across multiple customers. It gives you the ability to do MSP branding. So if you have customers and you want them to be able to log into Nebula to see what's going on, you can add your logo to the Nebula interface, and you can remove the support contacts to Zyxel and replace them with your own support stuff. So if a user logs in and they've got a question or needs some help, instead of being able to open a ticket with Zyxel, it'll refer them to you to get that help that they want. It also adds something here called Teams. So it makes it easier to manage multiple admin accounts. So rather than having, let's say if you add a new admin at your business, instead of having to go into each customer and manually add this new account to them, you can simply create a team and assign the teams to different customers. So it's a little bit simpler management if you have a lot of different admin accounts. It has the ability to do synchronization of features across different customers. So if you need to make some changes across all of your customers or most of your customers, MSP Pack allows you to synchronize certain settings across all of those to keep it simple. And then the other feature it does is it unlocks email alerts. So if a device goes offline, you get an email alert. Now that is a feature that's included with both the Plus and the Pro Pack. But if you use this MSP license, you will get that for all of your customers, whether they're using the free version of Nebula or one of the optional paid licensing options. So that's it as far as the MSP view goes. And now I want to talk about security licensing real quick. So security licensing is specifically for those of you using a gateway, Zyxel gateway product and offering UTM services. So we've got two different sets of licenses to choose from when it comes to UTM. If you are using our NSG series gateways, which have now been, I believe, largely phased out in favor of the USG Flex. But if you've got a legacy NSG, the NSS security pack is the UTM license that you use for that. The USG Flex, and I believe also the ATP, could be wrong on the ATP. Let's just focus that. Okay, so on the USG Flex, if you're using that as your gateway, it's called the UTM security pack. So again, different licenses based on which gateway you're using, the NSG or the USG Flex. And the reason for that is because the feature sets that those devices offer is slightly different. So it requires different licenses because you're unlocking different functionality. And then we've also got this new feature called Secure Wi-Fi. Tri has done some webinars on it in the past. Short version of it is it makes it really easy to deploy essentially a VPN to your employees or to your customers' employees without needing to configure any software, without needing to, mess with their existing router that they've got at home. It gives them a hardware VPN option. And basically what you do is you have to have a USG Flex at your main office. And then you simply provide access points to each one of the users that wants to work remotely. They take this access point home or you ship it to their home. They plug it into their existing router. They give it power. It'll automatically reach out over the internet, download its configuration. And now you can manage that device through the Nebula interface, and you can set up an SSID on that AP that automatically VPNs back into the office and gives them essentially local access. And you can use 802.1x, you could use dynamic pre-shared key, whatever you want to make sure only the employees' authorized network devices can connect to that SSID and go out through the VLAN. You can still set up other SSIDs for general internet access, but it solves a lot of the issues when it comes to configuration and double natting and things like that for doing remote VPN access back to the office. So again, secure Wi-Fi is for the USG Flex, and only if you want to use basically access points as VPN appliances. And then on the UTM side of things, we've got 2 different licenses depending on the hardware you are using. Oh, so here's the slide here, sorry about that, showing you basically the AP creates what's essentially a IPsec VPN connection from a specific SSID back to the office. And then you can do things like 802.1x and stuff like that to make sure only authorized devices are connecting to that SSID. So if this sounds interesting for you, you can always log into nebula.zyxel.com and log into our demo account. We've got a multi-site organization, so you can log in and see what's going on in Nebula. The login is nebula@zyxel.com, and the password is Nebula Demo, one word. The N in Nebula and the D in demo are capitalized. And then lastly here, marketing wants me to point out that we do have a YouTube site. It is called Zyxel America Channel, all one word. And I know that's a mouthful, but that's where all of our webinars get archived. That's also where any of our case studies will get published there as well. So if you've missed a webinar, we had a webinar last week and you wanted to attend but couldn't for some reason, if you've got new employees who you think might learn something, just simply point them to that Zyxel America channel, and all of our webinars are archived there. And then we're also on LinkedIn as Zyxel US channel. And with that, that is the end of today's webinar. Feel free to use that question and answer interface to send in any questions. I do not have any questions currently pending. And my email's up there on the screen. For those of you calling in, it is Sean R. Sean spelled SHAWNR @zyxel.com. Feel free to reach out to me directly via email with any questions about today's webinar, as well as just general feedback on the webinar, suggestions for new webinar topics you'd like to see us present, anything like that, feel free to send it in. So I'll stick around here for another minute just in case anybody's typing up any questions. So far, no questions have come in. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Again, thanks for joining us. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you're typing something up right now and I'm ending this too soon for you.